now to my computer. We are good to go. Okay, Myles, you've got sharing responsibilities, so take it away, mate.
Awesome, thank you very much. Oh, sorry, my Mac's asking me to accept system preferences first.
Oh God, this is going to be another bloody job from we had with Paul the other day, wasn't it?
Oh, I need to quit and reopen.
Right, you bugger off. This is all recorded, so this is going to be good.
Okay.
And we'll all talk amongst ourselves.
Okay.
Hands up, who's here for the session when Paul did the one when he hadn't got his computer all sorted out? And what was the lesson we learned from that? Always prepare. Always practice. Has anyone else got anything on report in the meantime? Ollie's working on a project because he's got looks like he's got a couple of people interviewed in a couple of opportunities to be interviewed, which is great. So he can't make it today. But has anyone else got anything they want to share with us? Great.
I suppose I could fill in the gap if we needed more audio time.
Yeah, go on, Ed.
Yeah, you'll never struggle to get me to say something or talk. So yeah, basically managed to get an extension, but it's an interesting lesson. It's an interesting lesson in the sense that it basically someone who had a really good relationship with the work. He basically was in a meeting with some work that was going on elsewhere in the organization, and he was like, "Oh right, well, we should definitely get Ed across this because you've got no other capability to do this right now. So is there a way that we can extend him, getting money from this area and this area, and get him to split his time 50-50 on these two new strands of work?" And basically they've said so I think it's kind of important to that whole thing happened basically without me even being there. Someone else basically was able to put me forward for something because he had a really good working relationship with him. So I think it's just an important lesson to showcase, just in the sense that if you do have really strong work bonds with people and you do leave an impression on people at work, then stuff like that can happen. That's an extra couple months of work for me. So yeah, no, it's just really good news.
Great. That's great news. That's great. Yeah,
Appreciate it. Yeah,
all the things you said, from the last session you did, which goes to show, it does pay off.
That's it. Yeah, exactly.
Got
strong bonds, good communication,
exactly right.
All of
that. You're certainly walking the water, mate. So that's sure. Myles, you good to go yet, or we'd have to fill more time?
No, I think I'm good to go. Let's see.
Hang on.
Okay, can you see my screen?
We can see your screen. That's a nice brand. Did you put the brand together?
The band?
The brand. Sidekick. The logo. Sorry, logo.
No. They had that pre-existing before I was in there. So yeah, I don't think I can share full screen. So we'll just go like this.
That's fine, mate. No, don't heaven forbid you practice this or anything like that.
Well, so yeah. As Giles said, Sidekick is a charity, and they kind of cover mental health. They have a mental health app on the iOS App Store, and hopefully, fingers crossed, launching on Android soon. Because it's not all that inclusive without Android, so they definitely need to get that sorted soon. And I joined back in November last year. They were on the lookout for someone anyway. They were about to start looking, and then a friend referred me to them. They were a non-profit at that point. And I just got in touch and said, hey, if you're looking for someone, then I want to lend my time, basically. And they said, yeah, that's great. Let's have a call and see what we can do. So
was that just via email you got in touch with them?
By LinkedIn. So
okay.
I reached out to the co-founder, Matt, on LinkedIn, and then we set up a call from there. So yeah, it kind of helped add an in, but I contacted other companies through Reach volunteering as well. There was a climate change company that I reached out to as well, and it just so happened that this one came along first, that I picked this one.
What's that program? Reach volunteering. That's a program to reach out to help charities, is that, I'm guessing?
Yeah, they list. It's like a job board for charities, a volunteer job board.
That's good.
So yeah, there's loads of UX stuff on there and design stuff if anyone ever wanted to reach out, and companies are putting them through all the time.
Excellent.
So more of this later, but I'll just give you a sneak peek of the actual work. We'll come up with that later. It's just a nice little splash that I put on my portfolio. Sometimes it's just nice to see the end product. So yeah, as said, Sidekick, mental health charity that aims to empower you to support your own mental health, helps you develop the confidence and resilience to overcome the barriers to achieving your full potential. Basically, they have an app and you can use it. And it kind of helps you. It helps. Basically, there's a library full of stuff. And
so how does it differ from other mental health apps that we would probably be all familiar with?
So first off, it's non-for-profit, and now it's a charity. So they don't take any profit, basically. Like, so you have Headspace, you have Calm, which we'll go on to talk about a bit later, but they focus heavily on, you know,
subscriptions.
Yeah, it's subscription based, but it's also very targeted. They have, it's not all that inclusive, because Headspace do like meditations and stuff like that. But if that doesn't work for you, then you can't use their app. And it's kind of the same with Calm. It's the same principle. There's not a lot else apart from the meditation on there. Okay. And so Sidekick thought, well, we can do better than this. And hopefully, as we move forward with kind of iterating on the app and the library and everything that goes with that, we will get to a point with that. But the app will always be free. There'll never be paid subscriptions for it. Uh-huh. So my involvement with it, as said, started volunteering in November 2020. There's long history of mental health in my family and my friends, and so it seemed ideal for me to do it. And it was only heightened by the fact that, like, we're in a pandemic, we're in lockdowns at the moment, seemingly, that are never ending, and people's mental health is key to that. You know, the effects of this pandemic are going to be felt for a long time, and the system isn't in place at the moment, certainly in the UK, to deal with that. The NHS do an amazing job, but often they don't have the funding for it, or they don't have, you know, they can't support everyone, or it's long waiting times. And so it's going to become even more important. But to make it clear, Sidekick can't replace mental health services. And Sidekick doesn't claim to do that either. You should use the app with going to see someone, or ideally working on your toolkit kind of thing. It shouldn't just be an app. More on that later though. So my involvement was that I obviously became the only UX designer there, fully volunteered, not paid. I, first of all, when I came in, I kind of undertook a review of the app, and that there was a couple of things that came out of that. But one of the first things I did was that I created a focus group. We really wanted to do that to understand how people were feeling about the app, and it was a mix of both like new people and existing people that had already been using the app, because I wanted both sides.
What was the amount of downloads you had before you started doing this?
Good question. It was somewhere in the 8,000, okay. I think. So it's not huge. It's definitely not huge. It's not loads more than that now. I think it's about 11 or 12,000. So it has gone up a little bit, but also retention is very low at the moment. They're struggling to keep hold of people, and yeah, often you just forget about these things. So I also implemented the design principles, and we are now implementing the GDS design principles. We felt that we needed a framework, and at the moment it feels like the GDS digital design principles are like the go-to at the moment. I'm hearing that quite a lot in the industry. They're also very clear and consistent, so it's something that was a no-brainer for us, and I'm sure over time we'll adapt them to our own, but with the foundation of the design principles. And then as is the point of this talk, we created the program tab, which is replacing the wellbeing workout tab, and I'll go into more detail on that now. So on the right hand side, you can see the wellbeing workout tab as it was in the app. The problem was that we did user testing to start, because the guys at Sidekick felt like there was a problem with it. And obviously it wasn't doing its job because there was no retention. And when we user tested it, some of our user testers are in the group now, some of them are in this group, and some of them were other people that Sidekick knew. We were finding that it takes kind of 2 minutes for someone to do quite a basic task on average on this screen. And I'm sure if you looked at this screen now, you'd go, well, what's that? What does that do? You know, like I did when I first initially looked at it. Some of the comments we had were that it was messy, complex, it was confusing. It just looks like a bit of a mess in truth.
It doesn't look very well designed, to be fair. I've got no sort of anchor points to it in the slightest. But.
Exactly, yeah. And to be fair to the guys, they never had a UX UI designer there. Yeah. The developer was designing it all. So it is sometimes what happens.
Particularly in charities, and it's a good lesson to be learned. I mean, if people, any of the group, do pick up any charity or non-for-profit work, be prepared to walk into effectively what is a bit of a shitstorm, because there's been no money, there's been no budget, there's been no respect for the amount of work it requires to get a user interface that's user-friendly and a site architecture that works, and indeed the purpose of an app that works. Very often someone will just have an app because they want an app, and they won't actually think, well, what do we actually aim to achieve by this? So be prepared for things like that if you do go into charity work. It can be messy, complex, confusing as is written there.
Yeah, definitely. And as you can see, like basic things were overlooked. So like the bottom bar on the right hand screen, there's no labels there, and you wouldn't know what they did. You'd have to click through them, and that goes on the mental load of someone that is already could be feeling quite stressed and quite anxious, or feeling low or depressed, and that's just not helpful for a mental health app. So that is another one of the things that we changed straight away. The labels are now on the bottom if you download the app. So yeah, it was a shitstorm. So the goal of the kind of redesigning this page was that it's one of the main features and we need to get it right. It's one of the anchor points of the whole app, and if it's not right, it's not going to work. We wanted to create a usable tab because it's not currently. We wanted to take away the feelings of confusion because it's currently causing confusion. And we wanted to create an innovative product, something that could stand up against Headspace and Calm, and it would still be free. We don't want to charge for it, but it should still be innovative. And so those were my main 3 goals of redesigning this page. So we moved, as I said before, we created a testing group, and I pulled all those people together and then dived into the user research. But before you got into the testing, I needed to know what questions I actually wanted answering from people. So I wanted to know whether it was helping people at all, because that's the point of the app. If we're not helping people, then what's the point in us even having the tab? You may as well take the tab off and just leave it. Did the people who were testing it understand the purpose, and how did the tab make people feel, which is especially important when you're designing for mental health. So there's so many research things that you could do, as I'm sure many people in this call could attest to. You could be here all day listing the amount, but we picked very specific ones. So I picked desk research first, of which I looked at Headspace, Calm. I already knew them. I've already used them. We also looked at Habitbox, which is like building habits. And
sorry, Myles, can you just define desk research for people, please?
Yeah, so you're literally sitting at your desk researching. So literally you're making notes as you go.
Just you researching on your computer, basically.
Yeah, exactly that. Not with anyone. It's usually solitary.
We used to call that just research, but now it's got labels. So
you also can call it benchmarking, couldn't you, as the other one? More traditional.
Yeah, good shout.
Yeah, definitely. I also looked at Google Calendar and iOS Calendar because they're fairly standard. Most people use them. And I wanted to do this to make sure that we were kind of adhering to Fitts law, which is the principle that you should if there's standard features across apps that people use already, then you should kind of keep those features. You
Makes sense, doesn't it? Makes sense.
Don't always want to reinvent the wheel,
yeah.
basically. Then user testing, 5 people as the Nielsen Norman group estimate that you get 85% of insights from 5 people. Don't need to go above that. And it was a set task kind of idea. But we also picked the fact that we wanted to hear people's stories. So each tester was asked about their story with mental health. They were obviously given at any time they could have said, I'm not comfortable sharing this, or they didn't have to answer it. But the reason I wanted that was because often, and this isn't just me, loads of people forget that we design for humans. Even when we call them users, they're still humans at heart. You know, they still have a story behind them. And I shared those. I obviously anonymized them and I shared them with the team once we had got back into the workshop. But again, more on that later. So going through the results after I did the testing, basically the testing was carried out by Google Meet, via Google Meets. I asked them to share their screen essentially, and they also recorded their iPhone if they had one, of which they could, they sent me after, which kind of bridged the gap between not being able to be in the room with them due to the pandemic. It wasn't as effective, and there's probably better ways of doing it, but it was just something that we had to do. We had no budget, we're a charity. So answering the first question then, that our results were that people weren't using the tab. New people said they wouldn't use the tab, and it wasn't going to support people effectively. At the end of the day, people didn't really know what it was. It's not clear. And from that, do I see the benefits of using this tab from that screen there that you can see on the right? No. And if that's not abundantly clear to me, am I going to use it? Maybe, out of chance, but probably not. So then moving on to the purpose, the overall answer was no. We got a lot of just no's. We don't know what that does. But we also heard that people were asking me whether it was a diary for physical health, or someone even said it was like a messaging app, which is so far away from what the kind of goal of the tab was, that it was crazy. And I think that was an eye-opener for when we went back and workshopped with the rest of the team at Sidekick. And how did it make people feel? Confused, overwhelmed, cluttered, messy? I'm sure looking at it, you felt the same in this kind of, in this format. So then after that, we went to workshopping, basically. So here's a nice picture of me and the team at Sidekick. It was very Christmassy themed, and everyone was smiling, which was nice. That makes a change. So what happened at this stage was that I presented it back to everyone at Sidekick. And in this call, Matt and James are the co-founders. Marina, who you can see in the bottom middle, is a psychologist. Heather, who's on the bottom right, is in account management. And Michael, who's in the top left, is digital marketing. So it's a wide range of people. I didn't want to just keep it to me, the co-founders, and that be it. I wanted everyone's views. We're a charity, so everyone can get involved as well. And the discussion point was really around key questions like, is this tab working? Well, no, obviously not. How do we redesign it in a way that it will work for people? But eventually we came to the conclusion that this concept wasn't going to work at all, and that nothing about this was applicable for people. People just wouldn't use it. They didn't want the kind of, they didn't want the tab to be something where you scheduled things in yourself, because new users might get confused about what to put in there if they haven't already built up their toolkit from the library. Other people would just found it confusing. Like, why would you do that kind of thing? I have calendars for that. So eventually we all settled on the idea that we would move away from this. And if it wasn't going to be the wellbeing workout tab, what was it then going to be? And there was this idea around, well, we have an in-house psychologist that can design programs, you know, that can design structured programs to help your mental health and to help you over a set period of time. And so maybe we should go that way. You know, maybe we should focus on Marina kind of making the programs, people go into them, you can sign up to one and do it over a set period of time. And that's kind of where we landed on. So as I said there, decided if we should stick or twist. Well, we twisted. If not wellbeing workout, then what? Well, programs. And as I said, there are a range of people there. So after this, I kind of went away feeling quite excited because we were going to make some real change. And we went to wireframing after that, and specifically I went to wireframing. The other guys went away and started thinking about the structure of what we wanted to do. But I moved on to wireframing and I started really basic. This is on Xeor RP9. So I didn't go straight into Figma or XD. I did this first, started really basic. What are the key fundamentals of what we needed on the page? Well, you needed the days, and then you needed the title, you needed a little description. Is this going to work? Is it not? Well, let's kind of do more concepts and see where we could go. So then I built up the complexity a bit more. Here you can see it's split into a section now. The control and anxiety is there, which is the title of the program that you're going to do. At this point, it was called Habit Builder. It's not anymore. It's called Programs. But same thing applies. You're going to have days that you have to do stuff. Maybe you'd show the exercise, some external content, which I know is spelt wrong there. But it's like in the supporting external content, something Sidekick like to do is inform you of why it helps and the science behind it. So I figured that could be there. And then the stats maybe, so you could kind of get a kick out of doing it every day, which is something I wanted to think about. And then looking at it from a different angle, I went, okay, well, if we pull back from the idea of the days being along the top, maybe we could put the stats along the top to draw more focus and keep people engaged throughout the days. It's like the gamification aspect of stuff. So again, went back to the guys, we at Sidekick, and I said, what do you think of these? Put your comments in there. These are the final versions, but before this, there were much simpler versions, and people commented, and we iterated through that process until we found a concept that we liked, which was this one, essentially, which I showed you a minute ago. We were going to go this way. So then after that, we went into high fidelity prototyping, and I used Figma for this, which is a bit different because I usually use XD, but I wanted to learn Figma at the same time. And essentially, we iterated on what we had already had and designed some of the other flows for the other pages. Some of them were quite simple and others weren't. As you can see, that might be small, but I'll zoom in a bit. As you can see from the high fidelity bits, the days stayed across the top with the title above it. Then you'd have today's exercise, which is the main focus of what you're trying to do. We want people to go there. And then the science below it, which when we spoke to people, I'll come on to this in a minute, but when we spoke to people in user testing, they often found it a little bit confusing that it was open and you couldn't close it. So we went with the open close accordion feel in the end. Then the other pages was listing and how we would list the things that you'd sign up for and those kind of things. And then at the very bottom there's the gamification aspect. So you'd get a nice notification once you were completed saying, congratulations, well done on doing another day towards boosting your confidence or controlling anxiety. So then after that, more usability testing. So I went to people with the high fidelity wireframes, not the low fidelity ones. And I wanted to show them how specific information would be shown to people and whether they would enjoy that. There were 2 people from the last round, and there were 3 people that I introduced to the process at this point, because I wanted some fresh eyes and people who hadn't seen the other tab, and I also wanted a mix of people that had. So I kind of joined 2 of the old round and 3 of the new ones. People felt they were much cleaner, much nicer, generally more well presented and well researched. Interestingly, 3 out of the 5 people preferred icons than the illustrations. So if I just go back, there's the illustrations here and then the icons on the page where they're listing the programs. And people actually preferred the icons because they displayed less emotion, which is interesting. It's something I'd have never thought to ask myself, but it's just something that happened to come out of it, which was definitely an interesting one. And then people felt the gamification was just a nice way to motivate people to come back. That was a big problem at the start, that people weren't coming back. So hopefully, that will help people in the end. And getting towards the end, so you don't have to hear my dreary voice much longer. The things I learned were that details matter, which is especially true for mental health. And I think health in general. You're designing products for very sensitive topics. And so like the icon thing, those details do matter. And it's about the flows of things. And I've tried to move that forward into stuff I'm doing with Sidekick now. So we're designing the new support, the SOS section for the app at the moment. And I'm really trying to install in people that, we're trying to design for people that are crisis mode, and the smallest details are going to matter to people, and being able to do things quickly while you're in crisis must be paramount. We must do the best by people. And then other people in the business take a different approach where they feel, no, we kind of need to keep people on our platform. But ultimately, it's my belief that especially when designing for mental health, we should be helping people, not hindering them, and trying to keep them all for ourselves. If they need help, they should get help from a wider community if they need it. Not everyone's a UX designer, but everyone can be human focused. So like I said, there was a marketing manager, 2 co-founders who do different director stuff at different companies, a psychologist, and account manager. They're not all UX designers. They don't have the specialism in UX. They don't have the training that we have, but they all can come in with a human focused mindset, and they should. And that's what we should encourage. It should be our job to encourage that mindset in wider businesses. Definitely pick your tools for your job. I know this gets repeated quite often, but I could have gone off and done surveys and done loads of stuff, but specifically picking the user testing for the research and the desk research allowed us to get a lot of information quickly so that we could build it quickly. No doubt we'll go back, review how we did it, and decide whether we pick the right ones. But I just think focus entirely on what the project needs, not having all of them. And programs have now gone live. And one thing we found challenging, which I got involved with myself, was the communicating of the change. You have users on the platform, although not many people were using it, some people were. And it's about how you communicate those changes to users and how you implement it. That can often cause a problem. And so I took an approach where I explained my decisions really clearly to people. And we did that via a number of mediums, by the App Store update list. We also did it via the newsletter, and I think it went on the website as well. So we just explained the rationale behind what we were doing. And that's all I've got for you, apart from this fancy little nice end mock-up, unless anyone has any questions.
Let's, if you stop presenting, we can see everyone's face, Myles, and that makes it a little bit easier for discourse.
Yeah, no worries.
If everyone's still there anyway. There you go. That's a joke, by the way.
Well, my voice is dreary at times.
Well, thank you very much for presenting that. It's really interesting to see how sort of a young designer's approaching a project like that. And a couple of things stand out for me. Number one was to not feel you have to keep, in modern parlance, you'd probably say to keep your research agile and lean, in a sense, to not over-egg it. And the temptation will always be there to do a lot of things that we all read about and get taught about and all that sort of stuff, but you kept it simple, and that managed to keep things moving. And that was obviously applicable to the nature of what the business is. It has to move quickly. It's got minimal resources. It hasn't got the kind of money or even time for someone to sit there for 14 days and go through infinite rounds of testing and research and that sort of stuff. So that was good to see. You put in good research to good use on that one. Another thing that I was quite interested to see was how you brought people along with you in your journey. And again, that's really important as a designer. To, like you said about not everyone's UX UI designer, but everyone has got human focused sensibilities, and you have to be able to tap into those when you work with people. And you're not trying to belittle our profession or anything like that. You're just trying to say to them, I need you to inform me how to bring this thing to life. And and it's a good skill to learn that as well. So that was a nice, clean presentation. I was impressed, and well done on the production of it. It must be good to have something in the App Store. Not many sort of young designers can say that.
Yeah, definitely. It was an exciting moment to have it published in the App Store. It took a while, but there you go.
Great. And what was the name of the reach out again? You said for the charity. If anyone else is interested in doing something like that?
Yeah, Reach volunteering. I'll put a link in Slack.
Yeah, please do. Please do. That's good. I mean, and what sort of time did it require? Because I know people often start these things with all the best will in the world, and they want to help and they want to give their time and so on and so forth. But now and again, reality hits home, whether, and they simply haven't got the time for whatever reason. So how much sort of time have you put into all this sort of stuff?
So reality's hit home in the last few weeks. But at that point, I was putting in quite a few hours just after work. I must have put on this project in particular, maybe if you counted up 7-hour working days, you're probably talking a week or 2 weeks total on all of it. So it's not loads, but it is
decent amount in your spare time. You've given half a month's worth of work for free, so I think that's very admirable. And it's important to do it in a way that's honest as well, and to keep yourself motivated. So well done. It's impressive. Has anyone else got any more questions for Myles?
I was thinking of just chiming in. So obviously, a good thing to see there is that you're using a few different design tools to kind of build out your suite of products that you're able to use. I think it's always good to do that, just because nowadays a lot of the job ads are asking for, I mean, sometimes they're a bit overzealous and saying you need to know like 6 different, be proficient in like 6 different tools, your Figmas, XDs and all that kind of stuff. My question to you is, have you had chance to play around with like the dynamic panels and stuff like that in Xor RP? Because I think that there's a lot of really good ways to test within Xor RP from a functionality standpoint in terms of replicating those interactions. So I noticed you had like days, for example, that were tabulated. You can actually replicate how that would function. I mean, did you consider doing that at all, or was there just not enough time, that type of thing?
Yeah, so part of it was because I hadn't learned. So when I first joined my company that I'm at now, at my actual business, my day job, we use Xor, but I haven't quite got around to working out the dynamic panels.
It's very fiddly.
Logic. Xor is great when you know it, but very confusing to start, it feels.
And they keep changing it as well, don't they? But yeah, no, I think it's definitely my recommendation is definitely keep on learning, because I think it's going to really help you out in terms of like those tests early doors. But I think it's good to see, like, it's funny because actually I usually go to design in Xor first as well, just because of how fast it is to drag and drop really basic stuff. There are actually really good integrations now with XD where you can actually just lift all the artboards straight into XD as well. So that's just another thing I'd recommend. But it's good to see learning different suites, so you're not just hamstrung by only knowing one design technology.
Yeah, definitely. I'll check that integration out. Sounds cool. Thanks.
Yeah, some good stuff. Yeah.
So dynamic panels, I'm just not quite sure what they are. Is that a kind of just interaction?
Worry not. I can explain, and I'm not an Azure salesman before I go off on this, but yeah, essentially, dynamic panel it allows you to create like layers and layers and layers of functionality. So you can actually create swipe interactions on your prototypes. Okay. I've created. I've seen. One of my colleagues was able to create a mini game using just Azure's dynamic panels, because basically you can create them interaction based. So it can be swipes, it can be taps, it can be drags. You can basically move content around. That's how to describe it without getting all inception-y. It's like a layer within a layer within a layer. So I used it for like, say for example, if you're designing like a calculator, it can be really good for like replicating that type of stuff that's quite complicated. I've designed spinners in it as well. Right. So say if you can have it based on page load, you can have it based on scrolling. So I had it when someone scrolled, it did a spinner, and then it generated the content. So it can be triggered by mathematics. You can go really, really geeky with it if you want to. But basically, the dynamic panels allow you to create like animations based on people's interactions with the page. So you can do some really powerful stuff in there. So I definitely check it out.
Not much coding there, or is it all purely kind of
zero code? It produces HTML.
We did spinners today, and there was an error with the spinner, but it's all in code, and it's a nightmare.
That's it, yeah. So yeah, well, with Azure, like thankfully I don't get involved in any of that, and it just generates the files as HTML, and then you can just share them to people. But it's really good for user testing, obviously.
Brilliant.
Also, the conditional logic is really advanced. Like we were building in work, we were building calculators with it, like complex mortgage calculators in it. It's incredible.
Is this free? But is there a trial version, or I'm just
You can get a trial. You can get a trial. It doesn't look like much at first. It looks like your most basic prototype, and so it looks like paint basically. But the dynamic panels actually, for me, make it one of the best tools on the market, because again, with Azure, you can have fully functioning drop-down menus. They don't have to be dynamic panels, everything. So, and you can like input all the details yourself. But yeah, seriously, Jed, check it out. It's good.
Definitely, yeah. Good stuff.
Cheers. Yeah, I did dabble a bit in Axure for a little while, and then I think Sketch reared its ugly head, and that's sort of, and then just
Axure is not one of the sexy tools, is it?
Axure fell by the wayside for us. But then when we moved into more robust user testing, it came into its own much more, and I could see that you could actually we could input proper data and get much more stuff put into it. It was like a great tool, but I'm not quite sure I've got it in me to actually learn it. We'll see. But Myles, quick one as well. You seem to go from very, very basic wireframes, almost just static grey blocks, to high fidelity very quickly. Did you have like a design system or anything to work with? Some componentry already sort of laid out from previous stuff, or what? Or did you make it up as you kind of go along and then try to document it retrospectively?
Yeah, so we needed to fit it in with their current branding, so in the app, so it couldn't be wildly different. But we had a style guide, which was colors, obviously, that you could pick from. But there was no component library per se. It was just documented after that, so the guys knew. When the person went to develop it, they could easily pick up the styles from Figma and whatever they needed. So yeah.
Great. Cool. Thanks. Cool. Well, thanks for that. If no one's got any more questions, I'm just looking at the time, and I wanted to quickly give everyone an update on the project where we are at the moment. So if everyone's all right, I'll share my screen and thank Myles for his presentation there.
Yeah, thanks, Myles. Enjoyed that. It was good. Really good.
Thanks, mate.
No problem. Thank you.
So share my screen. Let's work out which screen to share. Here we are. I'll do. Sorry, 2 seconds, everyone. I'm just trying to work out exactly which screen I'm sharing. Well, I think I've done this thousands of times before, would you? Can anyone see this screen? Can you see my email?
Yeah.
Great, fantastic. So This is the, can you see that?
Yeah.
Great. So this is how it's starting to look. So it's the link they've shared with us so far. Outsource engagement. We've got your, as you can see, we've got our menu working there. This is the stuff that Stefan's putting together. We've got a very simple out-the-box WordPress search functionality. So for those of you that aren't that up to speed so far, we had a friend of mine who operates a company called Outsourced Events, who are now bringing the events company online. Well, not all of it, but offering an online engagement as part of their service to their clients. And they approached us as a group and said, won't lie, we haven't got the money to go and start paying tens and 20,000s of pounds on websites. So we thought it'd be a good opportunity to give you guys some work that can be done at a good price, that we can all sort of chip in together, and it gives the whole group an opportunity to work on a live project. So we put together some designs and we've refined it, mainly based on Katie and Ollie's designs, but with a lot of other people's elements that are integrated into it. And this is where we've got to. So this is almost going to be finished this week. You can see, it'd be good for you, some of you will recognise some of the elements that's now coming to life. Hopefully you quite like those. You can see the colours and stuff that we're working on. Then you've got sort of the various overlays, and just remember the aspects there, and the newsletter and the footers. And you can just see how it's all coming together really quite nicely. If we, excuse me for 2 seconds, if I trying to, never mind, I was going to try and show it as an inspect mode, but it's not working. So then you click on services, and you can see what we've got. We've got this reusable componentry that works really nicely. And you know, again, so you've got the head of every page. You've got the way that this is put together. So some of the words are emphasised in orange, bringing it through, and you're getting reusable componentry. There's some aspects here that haven't been put together yet. These are the main post little widgets that we've designed. So once they're designed, it'll all work a lot nicer. And then we've got something like success stories and just bits and bobs. You can see again some reusable componentry. Once one bit's done, this will all get populated and work really nicely. One aspect they've done quite nicely here, we put together, is just the about us page. Let's engage you, going on the team, so on and so forth. And then you can see that we've got the content. Again, this is something that one of the last pages get worked out, but it gives you guys a good example as to how, when a developer produces a website, they will do what we call the global elements, the header and the navigation, you know, a footer, a newsletter, all the aspects like this, and then they'll just kind of work down and down and down and just keep tapping into bits and bobs. And so, for example, like I say, this componentry here, these blocks can work across many different pages. Whereas, but then these elements here are still waiting to be done. As soon as the elements are done, they'll populate across many of the pages as well. So we're not far off at all. And if you, let me just close this out, some of the artboards. And if we just, I can't for some reason get the inspect mode to work, so I can't, but I'll just close a browser window. So if you see the browser window like this, you can start to see how it's all coming together as well quite nicely. So as a site, it's going to be, it's going to be fairly simple. It's nice and clean. A few elements to work on here, but again, you can see simple out the box WordPress based stuff, and the client's absolutely delighted, which is great news, because what they are looking to do is I think they were waiting to see what the outcome was on this, and what they're actually looking to do now, and they mentioned it the other day to me, was they're looking at creating a commercial partnership with us, which is pretty cool. And the idea of that being that they'll be able to bring as many projects as they can to us, and we get an opportunity to design sites, simple sites, stuff like that, but there might be some more intelligent stuff. And then we can, A, all get live projects in our portfolios. B, we can sit there on a CV and say we've had commercial projects, people have paid us to do work, earn a bit of money, it's always quite nice. And just get up a good little reputation. So I think that's that could be really exciting. So we're going to present this. Hopefully it'll be finished by the end of this week, and I'll present it on Friday. Chuck an invoice through, so some of you that worked on it will see a couple of quid, which will be nice. And then hopefully have a commercial talk with them next week once we're up and running. So that's it. So it's going quite well.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. I think you should all be very proud and happy. It's as I kind of alluded to in the chat, it's it took me a while before I did anything that even got built. So for you guys involved in that must be really good. So yeah, give yourselves a pat on the back.
Definitely. And some of the way that some of the guys attacked the project was really good, and it was it helps. And for some of you who may want to work on some of the projects, some of you are at different advanced levels than others. When we just bring the next project in, it'll be okay. Let's get yourself familiar with an application or a program like Figma or Sketch or whatever people have alluded to. Figma's pretty good because it's free, so that does help. For starters, get yourself familiar with that. Just start doing some designs. That's all, and then we can help shape them as a group together. And you can learn to present, justify your designs, tweak them, change them. And then all I did last time was literally presented 7 different sets of ideas, and then the client, we've ended up with this, just basically cherry picked the bits and bobs they liked and we put them together based on one general theme, and away we went. So it's great. And as far as I'm concerned, anyone who worked on this can turn around and say and blag it as much as they want and make it out, bend the truth a little bit and say that as much as they want to. I don't care. None of us really care. Let's be brutally honest. We're all here for each other. So as far as I'm concerned, everyone chipped in, everyone helped out. So we can just turn around and say, oh, this is a website I did with a group of like-minded designers. Even if you've only chosen the font, don't really care. Just say you did it. So it shows it makes for a good story in your portfolio and good evidence of work.
I think you'd be surprised how far that goes, because there was, as I probably mentioned to a couple of you in the past, there was a lad who I'd mentored for like a week and brought him into work with us for a week. We did like a design sprint together, and even just the involvement in that literally 5 days worth of work has enabled him to get a really decent starter job at the whole group. So, don't hesitate to use that portfolio work for sure.
Definitely. And let's be fair, the whole idea I set this group up was to help people come up with realistic industry standard portfolio projects that we are now creating as a group, commercially paid for projects, is something pretty cool. And actually something I don't really use the word proud very often, but it's something I'm pretty proud about actually. I think it's pretty cool. So well done everyone. Cool. I'm just looking on the Figma board now. I can see Stefan's little marker going around the Figma board, picking up bits and bobs. He worked on the CMS page. That's good to see that's getting worked on as we're speaking. Okay, great. So I'm still recording, aren't I? I'll stop that now. Yabbering away.
You didn't sign an NDA with that client, did you?
Good bloody point, actually. Yeah, good point. Important. Yeah, I might have to clip the video actually. I might probably clip it into 2. I've got to stop now anyway. So almost ended the whole bloody meeting there and didn't stop the